Um, some of us got together from different environmental organizations and decided that we were going to go to the city and do some local actions that would coincide with the Paris Climate Agreement, kind of pushing local action. And so eventually, in the next year and a half, we became legal as the Citizens Task Force on Sustainability for Des Moines. And we've been working ever since on climate policy, on hiring a sustainability coordinator, which happened a year and a half ago, and creating a climate action plan, which is in the formation right now. So it took a while, but it shows you how important local action is when it comes to climate. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, I want to commend you and the task force for all that you've done. You've really helped push from the grassroots level up some really impressive work by the city of Des Moines, and have really laid a really strong foundation for their sustainability efforts, and getting Jeremy in there in that position created, I think, was a key piece of that too.
Mm-hmm. Well, it took a lot of people from a lot of environmental organizations and different kinds of coalition work, going to city council meetings, coffee with city council members, lobbying, all of that. And thanks to a lot of people, it really works. So,
yeah. And special thanks to you, Carolyn, because you've been kind of the driving force that's kept it together and really kind of pushed all of us into getting this going. So thanks for all of your work. So while we're waiting here for Jeremy, why don't we all just go around, since there's some new faces, let's go around and introduce ourselves so that we kind of know who's on here. So I'm Carrie Carney. I'm with 1000 Friends of Iowa, and I'm a member of the task force with Carolyn and others on the call. So Ginger, you want to go to you next?
Okay, I'm Ginger Stolberg, and I brought my shirt. We're quite a ways behind Des Moines, but we have started a climate change committee, and we're not affiliated with the council. We just, go to meetings and express opinions, and, we're working on projects. We just yesterday had a tiny trees free giveaway. We gave away 100 trees from the nursery, and we've done cleanups, and we're having monthly meetings, and we're making some progress, but it's, like, it's been slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But progress is better than no movement at all.
Yeah.
That's true. I live in Johnston. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I don't know what your first name is.
Virginia.
Virginia. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Virginia Vars. And I'm just I live at Calvin Community, and I'm part of the Interfaith Green Coalition. And so I'm just interested in this, and really haven't done anything major, just participate.
Which is important.
Thank you. And I cheer Carolyn on, but I haven't been to the committee.
Carolyn, do you want to introduce
yourself? All right. I'm Carolyn, a young worker and member of the task force, as well as several other environmental groups, and totally feel we have to move even faster than we are if we're going to stay ahead of the climate emergency that is happening.
All right, thank you. Susan, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Susan Pohl, and I'm kind of the link between this task force and the Sierra Club, and I guess I'm also the link to Plymouth Church's Care for Creation Group. So
All right, thank you, welcome. Eddie, I have you next.
I'm next. I'm Eddie Robinson. I'm the chairman of the Polk County Master Gardeners Steering Committee, and I'm also on the Drake Neighborhood Board of Directors. And I'm also on the task force for food sustainability.
All right, great.
Welcome.
And Sanita.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sunita Vanderleeuw. I work with the Iowa Environmental Council.
All right, thank you. And Sunita is on the task force as a representative of the council. And Peter.
Yeah, Peter Komendowski with Partnership for Healthy Iowa, and I work with the Iowa Whitewater Coalition and various platforms throughout the state and globally, primarily working as a futurist. So it just brings me to this because I found it was curious and I had an hour to spare today.
Great, thank you.
Interested to see what you're doing down there in Des Moines.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Chip, we'll let you introduce yourself.
Chip Mathis, Elkhart. I'm interested. I'm with Polk County Soil and Water Conservation District. Enjoy your Zoom meetings. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then we have someone on a phone, 515-402-8459.
Yes, that's Tess Esso and Lori Jones. And Lori asked me if I wanted to get on this Zoom meeting, and I said, well, yes, okay. So here we are. We're and she's on, like, I don't know, maybe 100 Zoom meetings. So she always gets me involved in. I go to the Sierra Club meetings and Wolf. So yeah, I'm trying to keep up with what Carolyn's doing locally, which is one of the more important things to do is to work locally. I'm sure that we all know that. And here's Lori.
Hello, everybody, and it's good to hear from you, Virginia, and others. I'm with with the Interfaith Green Coalition, a member of WILF, and I just love to tune into all the organizations that are interested in anything having to do with this climate crisis. And I'm reading the last chapter of Catherine Hayhoe's Saving Us, and it is the main message she's trying to get out of most of this book, of course, is we need to talk with one another. Good to be here.
Right.
Great, thank you, welcome. Well, Jeremy hasn't made it on now, so I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction of you, Jeff, and Jeremy might say a few words later when he hops on. He had a meeting that ran long and so texted to say he was running late. But Jeff Geerts, who is the Special Projects Director, part of the Iowa Energy Office with the Iowa Economic Development Authority, is here to talk to us about the site plan for the Iowa Economic Development site on Bell Avenue. And it's a pretty exciting plan that can act as a living laboratory for sustainable development practices. So we are excited to have Jeff here. Welcome, and I will turn it over to you. I don't know if you have slides or just talking, but if you have slides, you can share. Otherwise.
Sure, I can do that. Thanks. Thank you for the invitation, Carrie and Jeremy. A little more background here, because actually sounds like I may have a couple connections to some of you there. I actually live in Johnston, where Ginger's at, but Virginia, I helped start a community garden, actually at our church, Westminster Presbyterian Church, for the Des Moines Area Religious Council a few years ago, that actually started at Calvin Community. And then when Calvin Community expanded, we kind of temporarily were in a backyard of one of our members. And then eventually we removed about a 1/4 acre of our northwest parking lot there along Beaver, north of Allison, and created a community garden for refugee families. So we have 20 plots there that refugee families are gardening in. Like, most of them this year are Burmese families, but we've had Ethiopian and Bhutanese families in the past as well, and others. And it's been a great experience for us. So I got a little bit of a connection there with Virginia, and it sounds like Eddie, who's involved with the Food Security Task Force. We're at Westminster are trying to help out where we can with some of the food insecurity issues in the community in multiple ways. And that garden is one of them. We actually maintain 2 of the plots out of the 22, and we provide produce to the Des Moines Area Religious Council food pantry and a little food pantry we started next to the church there as well. And then for Chip, in my day job at the Iowa Economic Development Authority, I also work with some of our community block grant projects and disaster recovery projects, but also stormwater projects. So we had funding in the project there in Elkhart on Main Street, putting in some of the porous paver systems and rain garden bioretention cell projects there. So a little bit of connection. And I have a couple other connections to Des Moines as well. I'm on a nonprofit Des Moines Heritage Trust that restored the East Des Moines Union Depot over at 120 East 5th Street there in the East Village, or the Market District of the East Village, and built the event center next to it. And I think this task force actually was supportive of us early on and helping make that project come to fruition, and helped us get some city support. So thank you for that. And then for the topic of the evening, our office, of course, for the Iowa Economic Development Authority is located in Des Moines. I'm going to share my screen now and kind of give you a little idea where we're at. So this is at the corner of, this is Bell Avenue and Fleur Drive, Grays Lakes. It's right up here to the north of us. This is Communications Data Services, or CDS, in the Bell Avenue Business Center over here, just to the east. And if you were across the corner here is the old ABI campus. So this building, this property was purchased by the Iowa Finance Authority, I believe in 2019. So the Iowa Finance Authority is another quasi-state agency, and it's a sister agency of the Iowa Economic Development Authority. We both share Debbie Durham as our director, and we both work a lot with community development types of programs, particularly federally funded programs like the State Revolving Fund and the Community Development Block Grant Program. We also house the Iowa Insurance Division in that building also. So there's 3 agencies that reside in this complex now, and the total area is about 10 acres. And as you can see, as it sits right now, we have a pretty massive amount of parking and impermeable surfaces and a lot of turf, and a really hard to manage, very steep slope along Fleur Drive. Within our programs with the Community Development Block Grant for the last dozen years, we really have tried to improve the sustainability outcomes of the projects we've been funding. And we developed a set of sustainable design and construction guidelines to guide those developments called the Iowa Green Streets Criteria. And that Iowa Green Streets criteria is based on the National Green Communities criteria that some of you may want to look up, that was developed by Enterprise for affordable housing. We use it for more than just housing projects though, and we really focus on what we are building, where we're building it, and how we build it. We focus a lot on the materials that go into it. We focus a lot on the energy performance of the projects and the stormwater management of them as well. So we were really trying to push sustainable practices and really trying to push more towards getting to the point where we're regenerative in some of our projects. And at the same time, our sister agency, the Iowa Finance Authority, is funding literally billions of dollars of stormwater, wastewater, drinking water projects all across the state as well, and housing projects too. So we got to thinking we really should walk the talk and really consider, is there a way to take this 10 acres and turn it into a living laboratory for the best practices that we're promoting in many of our funding programs? So back in November, we were able to secure some financial support and partnerships with Polk County through the RAIN campaign and through the Department of Natural Resources and their non-point source or the 319 water program there, who really were interested in this concept of developing this living laboratory to showcase best practices for redeveloping an existing urban, developed site. How can we transform a site that's already been developed in an urban location and improve its overall environmental performance? So, we are looking at how do we improve the resiliency of our site? How do we make it more efficient to operate and maintain? How do we help it or use the site to help us in retaining and attracting staff to our agencies, as you probably hear every day? That seems to be a challenge for many people. So how can we turn that site into an amenity that can help us support the current staff and retain them and attract others in the future, and demonstrate some of our policies and initiatives? As we started this planning process, we did get some consulting assistance. We hired BNIM out of their Des Moines office. Kevin Nordmeyer led the team and partnered with a gentleman named David Yaka, who is a living infrastructure, ecology restoration expert and landscape architect fellow. So we had a really great team between Kevin and David. And we decided early on we were going to follow a national rating program called SITES. Well, it's a sustainable site certification program that was developed by the American Society of Landscape Architects, I always want to call it the Lady Bird Foundation in Dallas, but it's not quite the right complete name for it. But they developed a few years ago kind of a rating and ranking system for site development. And what you see here are the 8 areas within the sites program that we also decided to focus on. So water, and how do we balance the water on our site, and also view water as an amenity and not something that we want to get rid of as quickly as we can off the site. What can we do to restore habitat and biodiversity on the site? What can we do from our energy perspective? The Iowa Economic Development Authority actually houses the state energy office in the Iowa Energy Center, and I'm a member of the state energy office. So not only is this site an opportunity to promote some of our best practices when it comes to stormwater management, but energy as well. How can we use this site to demonstrate and inform and educate? How can we use it to help create a better work environment and encourage outdoor use of the site by our staff and programs? How can we partner with local service providers and helping us make that transformation? And how can we transform the site to have long-term operations and maintenance benefits as well? And as we started meeting, we developed this plan over about a 2-month period. We had about 36 people involved, and it was very interesting. We had about half of those 36 were Iowa Finance Authority and Iowa Economic Development Authority employees. But we also brought in the stormwater team from the city of Des Moines. We brought in Jeremy on the sustainability side. We brought in the Parks Department. We brought in community development, planning. We brought in Polk County and the Soil Water Conservation District, Drake University, Knapp Properties, Knapp Property Management, who manages our property, RJ Lawn and Landscape, who's our site contractor who maintains the outdoor portion of the site. The Iowa Stormwater Education Partnership was also involved. I think I mentioned Drake University as well, but we had about almost equal outside expertise combined with members from within our two agencies. And in that process, kind of narrowed it down or kind of developed these key themes. How do we right size the infrastructure we currently have in place? Again, and I'll talk more about the parking and the parking lot size here in a little bit. How do we create greater opportunities for outdoor uses on the site? How do we make better the access and the pedestrian circulation around the site? Again, encouraging more outdoor use of the site and connections to the neighborhood. And then also, how do we make our landscapes higher performing? And I'll go through each of these little pieces here. So starting with the vehicular infrastructure, by city ordinance, we're required based on the square footage of the building. And this site was developed, I always forget, I want to say 1963. I had another addition that happened in 93. And then some other improvements have happened a couple of times just after 2000 and then in 2019. But this site really is only required to have something along the lines of about 296 parking spaces or 292. As you can see right now, we have 506 existing parking spaces. So we have way more parking spaces than we're required to have or that we really need. I've been conducting some informal surveys out the window for the last few months now, doing parking counts, and we are regularly running about 290 spaces not being used. So we have way more parking than we likely need. So what this is showing here is part of our discussions with, I'm gonna go back here to the couple slides if I can. It's kind of stuck. Why am I not going backwards? Huh. I was going forward. Why can I not go backwards? Sorry about that. Anyway, what I was going to show you is right now there's a circle drive or a kind of a curved drive lane through the property. There's an entrance here and there's an entrance here as well. And right now the way it's set up, where these meet is a really kind of a dangerous situation. We basically have four directions of traffic all coming to one point, and it's not always easy for the people on this drive to see these folks or these folks and vice versa. So as we started looking at how can we reduce imperviousness on the site and provide more pervious landscapes to help us address stormwater, have less stormwater runoff, slow down the water, cool it, cleanse it, we started looking at how can we reduce parking. So we looked at some opportunities to remove some parking here. We looked at some opportunities to remove the entire north row of parking, or as shown here, change it from head in or back in parking to parallel parking, which cuts the number about half. And then we took out or proposed taking out the center drive circle and changing all of this into rain gardens or bioretention areas and doing pervious pavements here. So you could still go this way, but you can't go this way. And it creates some more green space and opportunities to manage stormwater. We also proposed taking out some parking in here to create a little outdoor green space that you'll see in some future photos, and kind of change the circle drop-off area to just a drop-off lane. And then looked at removing some parking over here too, which I'll show you. And eventually, even with just those minor changes, we showed that we could reduce our 4.5 acres of pavement by almost an acre, or 20% of the imperviousness that we currently have. And by doing that, it also helps create some opportunities to create these little pedestrian loops and walking paths around the site that when it added up, I think we're just a little over 3/4 of a mile if you made all of the loops. So we would be taking out the parking over here, creating a kind of a grassy swale, or we would call it a box. Yeah, somebody have a question or comment? Okay. And part of that, next to that bioswale, that would be managing the water that's running off this parking lot before it gets over to this feature I'll show in a little bit. We'd add a little walking path as well. So we tried to create better pedestrian circulation around here. Look at some ways to improve the crossings at Fleur Drive and Bell Avenue. Improve our bus shelter, which right now does not exist. Right now it's a signpost stuck in a, looks like a tire rim. Again, just trying to make it, much more attractive to use other modes of transportation, adding additional bike parking, making it closer to the front door and more accessible. We do have some indoor bike parking right now, but you have to go up a series of steps and across a loading dock and unlock 2 doors to get to it. So we're trying to make it more accessible. And as part of that accessibility, we also looked at the front entrance. So this is what the front entrance looks like now. And if you have some mobility issues and are not able to do stairs or do them very well, most of the accessible parking is just to the left off the screen. It connects to a ramp that comes up and around, and it's a very long ways to get to the front entrance. And we have all of these stairs that right now are being maintained, and they're being maintained, frankly, in the wintertime with way too much salt. And they're starting to degrade partly because of that. So we looked at how to reduce the amount of pavement up there, reduce the amount of stairs, bring the accessibility ramp much more closely aligned to the stairs where others are entering and closer to the front door, and created this large rain garden or bioretention cell here, and kind of a more native planted area here versus the turf that we currently have. And you can see remove that circle drive and created a drop-off lane. And if we were zoomed in really close in detail, you would see proposed here are permeable pavers as part of this front entry system. Looking at the outdoor use areas, again, not only from just getting out and walking, but can we move more of our meetings outdoors, whether internal or external meetings? Can we do some sort of educational programming out there? Can we create other types of work environments that help retain and attract employees, help with social distancing interests, provide safe places to gather? So right now, we have very little of that happens in our office. There's a little outdoor patio space that's hard to get to right now, that's fenced in and not all that attractive right here. But other than that, we don't really have a good outdoor gathering space that's been established. So what you can see is we proposed kind of what they're calling the sunroom here. So the south exposure, there's kind of a raised area here that's flat next to the building. It's kind of a shaded area on the north side, maybe even a little amphitheater type of space at the bottom of the hill. You'll see this here in a little more detail. And kind of creating this outdoor space next to what is right now a detention basin, and kind of creating this demonstration area where it could be anything from having little festivals to demonstrating little accessory dwelling unit examples, to maybe someday, maybe it's even a little business incubator space that we could have located there that could be working closely with Iowa Economic Development Authority and our targeted small business programs and some of our business development services. We also routinely have food trucks come to the site about 4 to 6 times a month, because while it might seem like we're a great location, you quickly find out we're about a mile from everything. And other than a little restaurant that has gone into the old AIB building here in the corner, there's not another place to eat within a mile really of us. So What you see here is we took out the parking that was along here, and you'll see in a future image, this becomes a parking canopy with solar. That could be a place where we park food trucks in the future and charge them or power them with the solar versus the diesel generators that a lot of them use now. And right now, those trucks sit in our circle drive at the front door. So again, just trying to create those kind of a greater outdoor, more amenable space for working and play as well. And then we also started looking at the stormwater side of things and what are the opportunities to create demonstration sites of different types of stormwater best practices. Right now, almost all of our stormwater is going into inlets in the parking lot or roof drains into storm sewer that is going to a detention basin here that's in really bad shape and very much silted in, probably with at least 1.5 feet of silt, if not more, over the last 60 years. We have a little bit that goes off east into a storm sewer pipe here that goes out eventually, I'm going to assume goes to Gray's Lake, although there is a little drainage ditch between us and Gray's Lake, so it may actually funnel its way over to the Raccoon River. So we started looking at how can we divide and conquer that stormwater and demonstrate lots of different practices. So we are showing here some proposals for incorporating permeable pavements, some opportunities for incorporating bow retention, which is basically rain gardens with a subdrain underneath them in case of a large rain event or the system gets clogged or whatever reason isn't draining, or we have a really large rain event. Converting our raised parking islands into rain gardens as well. That bioswale that I already mentioned would be an addition in where the parking spaces were at the north side. Converting this detention basin into a stormwater wetland. I'll have a couple more images of that, kind of creating a little boardwalk feature within it. We look at some rainwater harvesting opportunities off of the upper roof that maybe feeds kind of some little garden plots on the roof here, or at least green roof applications as well. And then I showed you already that little rain garden area, the entry plaza, as you come up to the front door. Kind of building off that idea of a high performing landscapes in addition to the stormwater management, really looking at the plant ecology on the site and really getting a lot more trees in there. Right now, unfortunately, if you go past our site, there are very few trees in the entire parking lot. We lost about 24 trees to the emerald ash borer, and they've come out, but nothing has gone back in yet. We also have a couple acres at least of mowed turf right now. That takes 2.5 to 3 hours a week that RJ Lawn Landscapers are mowing those and mowing these, the current parking islands. So there are some proposals in our plan to convert some to pollinator gardens. I would kind of view it all as pollinator gardens because we're talking about converting turf areas to restored prairie. We've already started that. We've already started prairie restoration on the south side of the building this spring. If you go by now, you'll see kind of an area that's been killed off and has some good plants and some not so good plants coming up. And then we also have it flagged out and are getting ready to take out about another, I think, 1/3 of an acre yet this year. Oops. Oh, I didn't know I could do that right in that space. This will also become prairie here over the next couple of years, and eventually we'll move over to here as well. And then we want to do the same thing along Fleur Drive. And hopefully we'll do that in tandem with the state's integrated roadside vegetation management program. But before we can do that, the city of Des Moines needs to adopt an integrated roadside vegetation management plan with DOT, which I think they're going to work on over the next year. Let's see what else can I show you. So adding some additional tree islands in here, but just a lot of trying to get more shade, more tree cover onto the site, and less turf and more natives onto the site as well. And then we also looked at our rooftops. We kind of have an interesting opportunity with our rooftops here. We have 4 rooftops second, third, and fourth floor, then the upper floor. This space up here actually has kind of a break room. And then most of it is the mechanical systems, but that break room actually has a rooftop patio access up here on the third floor. So we have opportunities to do maybe demonstrations of 3 different types of green roof systems, one on this roof, one on this roof, and one on this roof, and leave this roof as kind of a control comparison roof. And this fourth roof is also showing the potential for a solar array installation to show the benefits of installing solar over a cooler green roof than over a hot roof. So, and then speaking of solar, we also identify some other opportunities to incorporate solar into the site. And we could also do solar on these other roofs too, but for the purposes of the plan, what was suggested is solar on the upper roof over a green vegetated roof, a solar canopy over here that shades this row of parking and creates kind of a shaded outdoor space that all becomes green space. In the original area I showed, there's actually parking right there too, and there's also parking over here as well. We also propose a solar canopy over here and one over here as well, with this potentially being a kind of a little overlook area too for this stormwater wetland. And either this area or this area potentially being places we could park the state vehicles. Right now they're over here, they're unsheltered. And as more vehicles go to electric, you know, having the opportunity to charge those electric vehicles there, and there. Right now we have a charging station in front of the building here for 2 vehicles, but we know we're going to need more than that very soon. And then as part of that plan, we looked at phasing in the plan. So this was the consultant's recommendation of how we might phase in the project over the next few years as funding and time allows. We already aren't following this very closely. We've already started in with number 1, the native landscape. And like I said, we've already started work here and we're getting ready to start work over here too, probably yet this month. And we already are starting work on that main entry reconfiguration. Map Properties is currently out getting bids from contractors or engineers and design firms to redesign the front entrance piece of it. So hopefully you'll see a lot going on with the native vegetation this year, and then probably this front entrance being reconfigured next year. And then if the city has their integrated roadside vegetation management plan on file with DOT within a year from now, we probably will go to the Iowa DOT with an application for some funding, hopefully to tackle this piece of along Fleur Drive. It's so steep right now, you can't maintain it. I've walked up it. You basically have to walk on all 4s to get up there. So it's really hard to maintain. And we would really want to convert it to something that's easier, long-term, lower maintenance, and more attractive. So that's kind of a phase-in plan. So eventually you get to something that looks more like that. Or here's an image from the southwest at the base of the hill along Fleur Drive, looking over our not so attractive detention basin and our parking lot and existing building as it currently is. And this would be the vision if we implemented the concepts as shown that I just shared with you. So it'd be going from something that looks like this today to hopefully looking like this, and really demonstrating all those things we just talked about, the habitat restoration, the native plantings, the stormwater management, the alternative energy, reduction of impervious surfaces, creating more outdoor gatherings, working spaces, just getting more interaction with the site itself, reducing the heat island effect, all those kind of good things that we're trying to achieve. So there's one more, a little more close up of the vision. So we're basically trying to go from what you see on the left to that. And just, I've got a couple slides in here, just kind of fun things that I might as well show since I know they're in here. There's a group of universities led by Georgia Tech, I believe, that has been developing reuse opportunities for spent wind turbine blades. So they develop, if you Google Rewind, I think it's RE-wind design catalog, you can see the various designs that they've come up with for very specific types of wind turbine blades of varying sizes. Here's an example of design they've done with a wind turbine blade center section cut up and utilized as a roof over a bus shelter. Or here's an example where they can use those turbine blades for bridge structures. They have them both where they're kind of girders or supports in this manner. They have them where they're the girders underneath the bridge. They even have them where they can show kind of cross sections of them actually being the walking surface of the bridge. So it's kind of something we were kicking around because we know we need to do something to create a much more attractive bus stop on our site. And over here in that, what would become a stormwater wetland feature, we were showing examples of little boardwalks or bridges into the wetland itself. And that's where you could see maybe something like this being a use of some old wind turbines in Iowa that are currently, are no longer being utilized for whatever reason. So that's what I have. We can go back to some of those if anybody's got questions or comments or thoughts.
I have a question. I'm on the stormwater mitigation, flood mitigation committee for city committee. And the city, of course, is putting, way over 100 million in great infrastructure, and also doing a good job of trying to figure out green infrastructure. Just wondering if you have any research on the percent of flood mitigation that doesn't go down into the sewer or the retention basin, how effective, because I've been trying to, Philadelphia, their city plan is mainly green infrastructure.
Mhm.
And I've been trying to promote, I'm not a homeowner. And so, and all of them are homeowners on the committee that experienced the 2018 flood. So they're very much for green infrastructure, which I understand, but I'm saying that the green infrastructure can be really effective as a flood mitigation, with all these 100-year floods.
Yeah, I think with the green infrastructure, it depends on the types of practices you're talking about and the size of the event. Those 100-year events typically are going to need some additional capacity beyond what we get with a lot of the green infrastructure practices like the rain gardens or the stormwater wetland or the green roof. What we require through our Green Streets criteria on our community development block grant projects and our disaster recovery housing is for those projects to use green infrastructure to manage an 1.25-inch rainfall event, which covers about, at least historically, has covered about 90% of the rainfall events in Iowa. We've started offering some additional funding to projects that they'll commit to managing the 2.5-inch rainfall event on site with green infrastructure practices. But those 100-year events, I'm not sure what the 100, I don't know if Chip, if you know, I feel like a 100-year event is probably more in that 4 to 6 inch size.
Yeah.
So what the green infrastructure practices can do besides, well, one, they get the first flush of the rain so they can provide some of that cooling and the cleansing of that stormwater, but they also can help create more of a stable base flow going into our streams so they're not so flashy. So that's a benefit too in those flood events, and also just from a water supply, drinking water supply standpoint as well. So that's another benefit to the green infrastructure practices. They also, most of them also provide some really good habitat too that probably has been missing from sites. So There are lots of benefits to them, but almost all of them are developed with some sort of subdrain or overflow type of feature for large rain events. So, you know, with that said, I'm thinking back though, we did some projects. In 2008, we had some disaster recovery funds, a lot of disaster recovery funds across the state. Almost $1 billion came through our office. And with those funds, we did some stormwater projects in 3 large watersheds. We kind of targeted sub watersheds within them. And through things like wetlands, ponds, maybe a few terraces, grass waterways, wetlands, I think we showed within the smaller sub watersheds, we could get up to about a 30% reduction in flow with those big rain events you're talking about by having, if we had a certain number of those practices within the watershed and we located them strategically. There's a lot of math that goes into figuring out where to best suit them and which practice is best for each location. So they're probably not the complete solution to the large 100-year event, but they definitely can make a measurable impact on lowering that flow and the volume. And I would guess stream elevation you would see if you have more of these practices across the landscape.
And I'm also saying that it's a complement to the gray infrastructure, definitely.
Yeah,
The pipes are not going to work in 100-year flood either. So maybe between really good green infrastructure and gray infrastructure, we're going to have some resiliency. 100-year floods.
Well, yeah, and that green infrastructure can help downsize the size and the cost of that gray infrastructure as well, and provides many more benefits, like the cleansing and the cooling and the habitat and the just the walkability, the aesthetic value. I mean, it adds a lot. If you haven't been over in the Market District lately, they've done the first block of kind of the redevelopment there on Elm Street, just to the west of East 4th. And they've put in a series of curb cut flower retention cells or rain gardens. They're kind of 2-stage ones. They're very big, but they look magnificent. It's going to be amazing as that gets implemented throughout the entire Market District. It's going to really create, I think, a wonderful feel and amenity to that Market District. Hopefully others will see that and want to continue it in other parts of the city.
Jeff, has the value of trees, retaining large trees and how much they take up rainwater, has that been added into the?
Yeah, we definitely know there's value there, and there are calculations for that depending on type and size and age of trees. And it's a major emphasis of ours to get more trees on the site. We have not gotten to the point yet of doing all of the engineering calculations to figure out exactly how much water we have going and where and how much of a reduction we'll get. We haven't got to the point of engineering the design of the various stormwater practices yet, but we'll account for the trees and the tree, well, what I want to say, basically the tree trenches. I always want to say like aqua blocks, but I don't want to use too many trade names, but there are different ways to do the tree planters so that you interconnect them underneath the surface so that the stormwater gets to them better and the roots have more access to oxygen and water and just an overall higher survivability. Those are all things we talked about and discussed more in the full plan than just the images I showed you. So we have there's a full plan report that was done. Trying to remember if that was 80 pages, 60 to 80 pages. But again, this was kind of a high level conceptual, really looking at how we could turn this into a living laboratory. The plan was developed pretty quickly in a very low budget, and now the next phase is really getting some engineering expertise on board and starting to design some of these practices to go to construction. And we're starting that with the front entrance. Like I said, Knapp Properties manages our site, so they're out seeking bids to get design firms to design that to prepare it for construction. And we've already contracted with Inger Lamb, who's helping do the turf to prairie conversion on the site.
Yeah, I am concerned when I see them on a site plan, taking out the trees to put in a detention basin. You
No,
know,
there's where the stormwater wetland is at, is actually where the detention basin is now. So we aren't taking out, trying to get back to the, I don't know why my PowerPoint slide is not letting me go backwards.
I think I'll add our public works director last week when we were talking about the opportunity to do that vegetation management plan for that area of the site. Also mentioned that they did do a plant tree inventory and only identified one, really one tree in that area that they think is one that we need to be concerned about.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere in here. There's more trees along here, but our property ends about right there. And then this is our property line, our north property line is right behind this curve, just a couple of feet, runs across here. And then it's city right away, kind of on the upper part of the slope and all of the slope down here. And then our neighbor has this piece of it. But maybe I misunderstood you, Ginger. Our detention basin, or what we're showing as the stormwater wetland, in this image right now, it looks like this.
yeah. Now, I wasn't speaking about your project as much as I have seen it locally in other places where they're doing that.
Yeah. Well, in some cases, yeah, that was something I've learned over the years too. That always surprised me because I always thought having the trees along the stream corridors were a good thing, but apparently in some cases not a good thing, and they contribute to stream bank erosion and so forth. So there's definitely, in a lot of the stream bank stabilization work that happens, they seem to remove the trees to try to get a better, so I'm looking for ratio of slope to protect that stream bank and even create little flood benches for flooding and kind of reconnect in some cases to the floodway. But there are some other cases where trees go, and I'm very, very upset and sad to see that happen. I probably know what I'm talking about.
I'm wondering, you showed the slide that talked about kind of how the project was being phased in. Do you have an estimate of like when you're expecting all the different pieces to be completed? And then B, is there any concern? It seems like a lot of times projects that propose green roofs, and the green roofs are always like on the last thing to be completed, and they're always the first thing to get cut because of budget cuts. So wondering if there's any concern for that.
Always. It seems like the green roof projects that get proposed and many of the projects we fund outside our agency seem to be one of the first things to go because they are an expensive upfront cost. Although in the right situations, they can provide some energy efficiency benefits to a building. They obviously provide stormwater benefits, and they also can make the roof last longer. I think there's very strong interest, and the director has expressed very strong interest and has been quizzing me about when we're getting a green roof, at least on this portion, because we've got this outdoor patio space for staff. It would just be natural connection for us to get a green roof up here, because it'd also be very visible, because we could bring the public up there and they could see it and walk on it where appropriate. So that's probably the one we would target first. And we just have to figure out how we pay for it. And that's where I hope, being a sister agency with the Iowa Finance Authority, they could help us figure that out, since they fund stormwater projects all over the state. Question is whether we can invest or loan to ourselves. Haven't been down that road yet. The solar pieces, I think there's a potential to do some of that within the next year, if not sooner. There could be, I don't know if it's going to make sense for us being so large, whether there's advantage for us going through the Grow Solar Polk County effort, but I went to the Solar Power Hour last night to get my name on the list, so they would come and assess this site and at least look at it for us. Because through the infrastructure funding, the State Energy Office, which we house, will be getting a formula allocation of energy efficiency conservation block grant funds, which also can be used for renewable energy projects. And we can use some of those funds on public buildings. So I have no confirmation of this. I have not made the formal pitch yet, but in theory, we will have funding coming that we could, if we wanted to invest in ourselves, do one or more of these solar installations and some energy efficiency improvements. There's a portion of those funds, I think it's 60%, that we need to award out at minimum to local governments, I believe it is. DOE is still writing the program guidelines. They haven't come out yet, so that's why I don't know all the details. But I think there could be a funding source for the solar. I think maybe through the state revolving fund, maybe through the water quality initiative at IDALS. There at least could be some eligibility to chip away at some of the stormwater management stuff. Again, sometimes it's a little harder for the state to invest in itself. Some people frown on that. Others think we should be doing more of that. So we'll see how that goes. And then, as Jeremy mentioned, hopefully, as the city develops its integrated roadside vegetation management plan and files it with DOT, we'll be able to access that state program to assist with this piece. So timeframe, I don't know, I'll say 10 years, but I hope it's less than that. The other thing to keep in mind here is that just to the east of us, it's partly showing on here, the Bell Avenue Business Center is now owned by Kraus or Kraus Group or Kraus Plus, part of the Kraus family. So they've got those, whatever it is, like 40 acres over here. And in the south of Grays Lake Masterplan, there's lots of redevelopment shown here too. So there may be some opportunities as that redevelopment happens that we can kind of partner together. There's redevelopment shown north of us as well. So maybe there's a way to collaborate and partner all of that stuff, and maybe at economies of scale could help us do some things that maybe we wouldn't be able to do, or maybe you could do them more quickly. But I think this redevelopment's probably at least 10 years down the road too, probably after the soccer stadium district or whatever it's called gets tackled first.
Jeff, are you, as a living lab, will this be shown to developers, to corporations, to big business, as well as, of course, city staff and I mean, just to show what can be done?
No, definitely. That was our whole idea and our pitch to Department of Natural Resources and why they helped fund the development of this plan. We envision site tours, field days as things are being constructed and as they're installed, having some sort of informative website, having signage around the site explaining to people what they're seeing. You could have little classes there. We actually have we've developed a couple of large meeting rooms in here, so we could envision working with the Iowa Stormwater Education Partnership and doing classes and maybe even hands-on installation types of trainings going on with different practices on the site, training some of our staff as docents to lead tours. It's also partly why we've been trying to engage David Kurard-Hari and Tom Rosberg at Drake to see how we can partner with them to start collecting intervention data. So, what's the data we have now from the site? What amounts of runoff are we getting? What's in the runoff? What type of habitats do we have? What species are we seeing on the site? We currently have NAP properties and RJ collecting cost of maintenance and operations data for us, information on chemicals, amounts used, amounts of salt used. We're trying to collect as much baseline data as we can, and then be able to do comparisons, after the various interventions as they're made, so we can share that as part of the trainings too.
What other questions do we have for Jeff? Just unmute yourself and don't be shy.
Lots of good information here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Keep an eye on it and see how it progresses along. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to talk more about it. If you see opportunities for partnerships to help bring the vision to reality, I'm definitely interested in those as well.
Yeah, and I know 1000 Friends of Iowa is going to be looking forward to a Best Development Award nomination in the future. So
I hope so too. That would be great. Sounds good.
We like field trips.
yeah,
Me too. Okay.
very good. Anything
Good to
else?
know.
Jeff, thank you so much. This was great.
Oh, Eddie, did Eddie have something there?
How might I contact you?
It's Jeff, Jeff GEERTS at IEDA.com. So Iowa, Eddie, Day, and awesome. IowaEDA.com.
Iowa EDA.
Yep. Iowa Economic Development Authority. So
Okay.
IowaEDA.com.
It's all lowercase, right?
It's all lowercase. Doesn't matter.
Cool. We'll be in touch.
Great.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. A wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Thanks. Appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeff. Jeremy, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. Sorry about being silhouetted. Apparently the daylighting behind me doesn't really work with my computer camera, so I'll have to figure out how to fix that in my new office space.
I thought that was your halo.
Well, I try to fight the good fight. So I'll just give a quick update on climate action planning. We had our first steering committee meeting last week, brought together a great group of folks from across a number of organizations throughout the city. And then we also had a series of several focus groups with our technical advisory groups, and that was broken up by subject matter based on the different sort of draft focus areas that we're looking at for the planning process. So those include energy use and resources, buildings and infrastructure, transportation and land use, food systems and security, natural systems and water resources, and climate preparedness and resilience. And so we've had some very fruitful discussions, introduced the focus groups to the planning process, and did some brainstorming about challenges they foresee with municipal and community-wide facilities and assets and vulnerable populations related to their expertise, and then sort of brainstorm some very creative, high level initial solution ideas with those groups. But that was just the first of a series of several meetings. We'll be doing our first public forum on June 15th. So get that on your calendars. We'll be getting a link out. That'll be an online forum, and we'll also be released alongside our first community survey. And those should come out. Unfortunately, our web guru is on vacation this week, so we probably won't get that out till Monday or Tuesday of next week. But we'll get at least a placeholder up on the city calendar. And please inform your networks and your groups that that'll be coming down the pipeline here. And so a great opportunity for folks to weigh in and provide some initial feedback and input on the climate action planning process. And then we're planning a number of smaller group meetings, one-on-one discussions where it makes sense as well, and also tabling at different community events throughout the summer. So stay tuned. We'll have our website for the plan up very shortly here, and that's where we're going to warehouse all of the information related to this planning effort and hopefully demystify some of this process for everybody.
Thanks, Jeremy. And just as a reminder, the task force will not have a meeting on the 15th, so everybody can attend the virtual climate action plan meeting.
What time is that meeting?
I think it's at 5:30. I'll have to double check that. Let me just check my calendar here. Yeah, I have a hold on here from 5:30 to 8 on my calendar. It's either 5:30 or 6 o'clock. I think it might be 6 o'clock, but more info to come on that.
Yeah. And Carolyn.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yep, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was just going to say, could you let us know when that link is live so we can share it with folks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
I'll
you.
send out. I'll send a notice to Carrie, and she can spread that amongst everybody on the task force mailing list. Carrie, did you have something else?
Nope. Anybody else? Carolyn, did you have anything or?
Not really. I know Shane McQuillan, who is our new forester, is going to come by probably in July to talk about the urban forest master plan and how it's going to get funded, because it needs more funding than it has, and hopefully the American Rescue Plan will give us some money there. But so that's going to happen. Otherwise, hope to see everybody at the June 15th forum that for the climate action plan. That sounds wonderful.
All right. Thanks everybody for attending. This was recorded, so we'll send the recording out to everybody. Everybody used it. So thank you all very much.
Thanks for.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.